Good morning. How lovely to see each of you. I am Reverend Lynn Gardner. My pronouns are she and they, and along with Reverend Wendy, name, not pronouns, please. We have the honor of being the co ministers of this congregation and are so glad that you have chosen to be here on this bright Sunday morning. If you're visiting here for the first time, whether online or in the room, we offer you an especially warm welcome.
Today's service is about covenants and the promises we make now and for the long haul. And as we receive the gift of our next breath and settle more fully in our seats, getting ourselves as comfortable as we can with all of our various aches and creaks and whatnot, let us be grateful for this gathered body. And that includes our folks on Zoom in our Zoom sanctuary. What a gift it is to be together. This morning, we have invited Brianna Lynch and Matt Green to kindle our chalice. Our opening words are from our friend and colleague, the Reverend Julian Jamaica Soto. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath, the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like a North Star and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know the way to the world of which we dream, and by covenant and the movement forward of one right action and the next, we know that one day we will arrive at home. Thank you.
Imagine a religion where people of different beliefs worship as one faith. In the early 2000s, the Unitarian Universalist Association invested in an ad campaign to raise awareness of our denomination. There were billboards that read, "Imagine a religion where people of different beliefs worship as one faith." It was certainly a novel idea to many, especially those who equate religion with creeds or required beliefs. The idea that religion is about believing can partly be traced back to St. Paul. When Paul started the religion known as Christianity, he made believing central. Unitarianism and Universalism both began as expressions of particular branches of Christian beliefs. Our Unitarian ancestors in the 1500s rejected the doctrine of the Trinity and professed the oneness of God. This was viewed as heretical, and being a heretic was dangerous. 200 years later, our Universalist ancestors taught that God's love was not limited to a select few, that salvation was universal. This was also seen as heretical. We have that on both sides. Some argued that without the threat of hell, there was nothing to keep people behaving kindly or avoiding evil. And there are those who continue to claim that only some are worthy of love, that only some deserve care and respect. It can be hard to override our bitter impulses, and I have cast my lot with the heretics, those who rise up, refusing to let hatred in, refusing to let hatred win, choosing love again and again and again. Over time, our Unitarian and Universalist theologies have broadened. We are a pluralistic faith that values theological diversity. When the two denominations merged in 1961, it was covenant rather than a common scripture or a set of beliefs that held the people and our congregations together. UU minister and scholar, the Reverend Kendall Gibbons, wrote, "Covenant is our word for the solemn promises that counteract the randomness of a future in which anything and everything is possible, by committing us in advance to certain relationships and values. We do this because when we build with intention and even with difficulty, because what we build with intention and even with difficulty is more satisfying in the long run than the pleasures that we happen to encounter. We do it in time-consuming rituals, invoking powers that we scarcely know how to name, because we are seeking some way to give our lives the density and dignity and depth that we suspect with longing might yet be possible. Even as we are a covenantal faith, it can still matter what we believe. Sophia Lyon-Faz, a teacher and author whose work transformed religious education in the 20th century, wrote, "Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies." And so it matters what we believe. And because we are not expected or required to have certain beliefs, it is important that we come to our beliefs carefully, thoughtfully, that we re-examine them now and again to see if they are still supportive of how we want to live. It matters what we believe, and so we have lifespan religious education opportunities so that we can learn with and from one another. It matters what we believe because our beliefs are part of the foundation for how we act, and our actions are how we make a difference and live into our covenants. One of our colleagues, the Reverend David Pyle, notes that living into a covenant has some parallels with his Zen meditation practice. In the basic teaching for Zen meditation, he says, the focus is on your breath. Beginners are often encouraged to count your breath, 1 to 10, and then start over again. You can just bring all your attention to the breath coming in and then going out. And our minds will wander off. They will start thinking about one thing and then another. That's okay. That's what minds do. The mind secretes thoughts the way the liver secretes bile. It's just doing its job. The practice in Zen meditation and other forms of meditation is as soon as you notice that your mind has wandered off, that you bring your attention back to the breath. The practice is the coming back. The point of meditation is not to be so concentrated that you stay focused on the breath the whole time. The point is to spend that time coming back over and over, noticing a thought, letting it go, returning to the breath. Returning to the breath is the practice. And as Reverend Pyle points out, coming back is also the point of our covenants. They are aspirational. To practice covenant, we come back to them again and again, mindful of the promises that define who we are. The promises and commitments that we make to ourselves, to the holy, to the earth, to partners or family members, to our neighbors, to those we might study or work with, to others in this congregation. These promises can shape who we are and who we become. And just like focusing on the breath, our ability to remain steadfast to our promises and our covenants wavers. That doesn't mean that making covenants is wrong or that we are wrong for making them. The practice of covenant is returning to them again and again, not disregarding them, but returning to them and doing the careful work of repair. We may say the words of our congregation's bond of union at worship, but with practice, it can guide us during the week as well. Any one of us might speak harshly or feel impatient. We can come back to love as the spirit of this church. Any one of us might behave selfishly. We can come back to service as our prayer. Any one of us might do or say something that is not completely honest, and we can come back to truth as our sacrament. The point isn't to hide our mistakes or to cover up broken promises. It is to tend to our relationships now and for the long haul. Like the Japanese practice of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with lacquer mixed with gold powder, we bring our attention to healing, repairing, restoring. Theologian, social ethicist, and UU minister James Luther Adams taught that human beings individually and collectively become human by making a commitment, by making promises. The human being as such, as Martin Buber says, is the promise-making, promise-keeping, promise-breaking, promise-renewing creature. The human being is the promise maker, the commitment maker. We gather in religious community to practice being human, to do so in relationship to others, which means we will have opportunities to return to our covenants again and again. Longtime members of this congregation may remember Nancy McGowan, who was part of this congregation before moving to South Carolina, where she now works for the UUA. In one of our newer denominational pamphlets, Nancy and Connie Goodbread wrote, "Once covenant is alive between the people of a community, it binds them together. It is reflected in the heart and work of that community. These values are present in the mission and are what we collectively hold ourselves accountable to." They continue, "A community covenant is a vow from our hearts that we make together, grounded in our shared values. We make it together, we keep it together. When we break it, our relationship is broken, we fix it together. When broken, and anyone can break covenant, we look to ourselves first before we blame the behavior of others. We call ourselves back into right relationship. We set kind and loving boundaries and rededicate ourselves to covenant." The questions, they say, that we need to ask ourselves are, how have I been behaving? How have I kept covenant? What role am I playing in breaking it? Then, having been honest with ourselves and sought counsel as needed and been transparent with those with whom we are bound, we're ready to come back into covenant with each other. It's not a quick fix. This coming back into covenant isn't a superficial process. Tending to our relationships and to the promises between us can be transformational work. It can feel awful to realize that our words or actions have hurt someone else or that we've let someone else down. It can also be awful to feel hurt or threatened, disappointed, or to lose trust. When we choose to keep love at the center, we can learn to stop the harm, heal the hurts, and repair what has been broken. It takes courage. It can take time. And like kintsugi pottery, it can also create something beautiful that is stronger where it was once broken. Each year, your board of trustees creates a new covenant, being explicit about how the board members want to be with one another. Your board works hard, making thoughtful decisions, creating and following policies that serve the mission, and tending to the resources of the congregation. For the past several years, the covenant has included our commitments for when any of us slip out of covenant. This year, that section says, when we break our covenant, we will have the courage to name that our covenant is broken, pause and take a breath, respond in a deliberate, non-reactive way, ask questions to have a more complete understanding of the situation, acknowledge our errors, keeping in mind the intention versus the impact, apologize and ask for forgiveness, try to make amends, clarify any expectations after the fact, offer forgiveness when it is possible and appropriate, recognize that it can take time to rebuild trust, tend to our relationships. These are practices of faithful repair. And if we have any hope of transforming the world, we need to also transform ourselves.
In the 1990s, I was a music therapist and worked with a lot of different folks. And at the time, there were two different professional organizations: the National Association of Music Therapy, which I was a member of, and the American Association of Music Therapy. Not unlike the Unitarians and Universalists, those two professional associations had a lot in common, but also some significant differences. And after several years of meetings, task forces, and joint conferences, the two decided to merge to become the American Music Therapy Association in 1998. While the proceedings did not involve a covenant, as far as I know, there was a concert somewhere along the way by Ken Miedema, a somewhat goofy, quite talented pianist and composer who also happens to be blind. He's also a liberal Christian and has played for lots of different kinds of audiences, including a room full of music therapists who were contemplating a rather large decision. The chorus of one of his songs stays with me still. And I remember moving and clapping and singing along as he played his keyboard and programmed the drum machine and sang his heart out along with all of us. A powerful reminder to me that to me feels like a covenant. We're bound together and finely woven. We're bound together and finely woven. We're bound together and finely woven with love. And he'd start grooving. We are bound together and finely woven. We're bound together and finely woven. We're bound together and finely woven with love. When we speak of covenants in our faith, we usually are referring to human relationships. But we can also have other types of covenants. Promises we make to the earth, for instance. Author and educator Robin Wall Kimmerer shares this in her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. The moral covenant of reciprocity calls us to honor our responsibilities for all we have been given, for all that we have taken. It's our turn now, long overdue. Let us hold a giveaway for Mother Earth, spread our blankets out for her, and pile them high with gifts of our own making. Imagine the books, the paintings, the poems, the clever machines, the compassionate acts, the transcendent ideas, the perfect foods and tools, the fierce defense of all that has been given, gifts of mind, hands, heart, voice, and vision, all offered up on behalf of the earth. Whatever our gifts, she says, we are called to give it and to dance for the renewal of the world in return for the privilege of breath. What gifts of reciprocity would you offer Mother Earth? What promises have you made to care for the earth in stewardship? What would a covenant with the earth be like? How would we, perhaps as a species, live if we covenanted with the monarch butterfly, with the bald eagle, with the ginkgo tree or the Mohawk River? And how do we come back into covenant with the poisoned creek that runs past the church and on to Union College? With the maple trees that have been carrying a fungus all summer from the climate change we are experiencing? Whether we are striving to save our democracy or save the whales or save a friendship or a marriage, covenanting with one another and doing all we can to honor those promises and to remind one another of them can really matter. The East Wing of the White House would still be standing because the promise to protect would have been honored. We would pray for our enemies rather than bomb them. We'd welcome the stranger instead of detaining them. We would show love to our neighbors rather than fearing them. Also in 1998, that same year as the music therapy conference in the UUA General Assembly took place in Rochester, New York. Were any of you there? 1998? Christy was there. Any folks online waving their hands at all? More than 4,000 Unitarian Universalists attended. It was the highest assembly, highest number of participants in an assembly up to that point. The whole conference was exploring the theme fulfilling the promise and focusing attention of attendees and delegates on the characteristics of covenantal relationships. Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker was one of the keynote speakers and contextualized the conversation of covenant in historic terms. And she concluded the presentation with these stanzas. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the source of life, knowing that we are not our own. Earth made us. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the community of resistance, never to forget that life can be saved from that which threatens it, by even small bands of people choosing to put into practice an alternative way of life. And let us covenant with one another to seek for an ever deeper awareness of that which springs up inwardly in us, even when our hearts are broken by our own failure or the failure of others cutting into our lives. Even when we have done all we can and life is still broken, there is a universal love that has never broken faith with us and never will. This is the ground of our hope and the reason we can be bold in seeking to fulfill the promise. We're bound together and finely woven. We're bound together and finely woven. We're bound together and finely woven with love. May we remember that this is so. Amen, and blessed be. Love knocks. Let us throw wide the door and welcome love within us and between us. May our covenantal faith inspire us to build bridges, not walls, connections, not control. Let us refuse to let hatred in. Let us have the courage to address what is broken within us and between us. For we are the people who return to love like a north star and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. We're in this till the end.